Emma Williams had learned to live inside quiet spaces filled with schedules, dishes, paperwork, and a marriage that had slowly faded into something more like partnership than love. At 42, she had accepted that life didn't always stay bright. Responsibilities often replaced romance, and routines replaced the tiny surprises that once made her heart beat a little faster. She never complained, at least not out loud. She simply moved through her days in her Seattle home, keeping everything running while her husband, Mark, spent most of his time away for work. When she heard that Mark's 22-year-old son, Ryan, would be staying with them for a few months, she felt a mixture of nerves and hope. She liked Ryan. He was polite, calm, never demanding, but this would be the first time he would live with them. Part of her wondered if his presence might make the house feel a little less empty, a little less predictable. She didn't know then how much that single change would shift the energy of everything around her. Ryan arrived with 2 suitcases, a tired smile, and a kind of quiet sadness she couldn't understand. He had graduated recently from a university in California and was looking for work in Seattle. From the moment he walked in, he thanked her for making space, for preparing the guest room, for cooking dinner. Emma wasn't used to being thanked. She wasn't used to anyone noticing her efforts so quickly. That alone softened something in her heart. The first few days were peaceful. Ryan spent time searching for jobs, helping around the house, and asking Emma genuine questions: how her day went, what she liked to paint, whether she had any favorite places in the city. He spoke with a warmth she rarely received from Mark anymore. It wasn't romantic or inappropriate. It was simply human connection. Something she did not realize she had been missing. One evening, after a long, exhausting day, the house felt unusually quiet. Mark was still at work hours later than he had promised. Emma went to the kitchen to make tea, hoping something warm would calm her tired mind. When she walked in, she found Ryan standing by the counter, staring at his phone with a look she couldn't describe. It wasn't anger, it wasn't frustration. Was something softer, something like loneliness. She stepped closer, speaking gently. "Ryan, is everything okay?" He turned toward her slowly, and there was a kind of heaviness in his eyes she had never seen before. He didn't say anything. He didn't try to explain. Instead, he stepped forward and wrapped his arms around her in a soft, hesitant hug. It wasn't rushed, it wasn't too close, and it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt like he simply needed someone to anchor him for a moment. Emma froze for a second, surprised. She hadn't expected it. She hadn't been hugged with this kind of genuine need in a long time. But something inside her understood instantly that this had nothing to do with attraction or confusion. It was just a young man reaching out for comfort, and a woman who didn't know how much she needed comfort herself until that exact moment. She slowly lifted her arms and hugged him back, not tightly, not emotionally, just gently. The kind of gentle that says, "You're safe. It's okay. I'm here." The hug lasted only a few seconds, but those few seconds felt strangely meaningful. It's like a small light turning on in a dark room. When Ryan pulled back slightly, his voice trembled as he spoke. "I wish someone hugged me like this before." The words hit Emma in a way she didn't expect. She wasn't sure what part made her heart react to honesty, the sadness, or the fact that he felt safe enough with her to say something so vulnerable. She opened her mouth to ask what he meant, but the sound never came out. She didn't know how to respond without risking saying the wrong thing. Ryan stepped back completely, wiping at his eyes in an embarrassed way, as if suddenly realizing how exposed he had become. "Sorry," he whispered, trying to smile. "I didn't mean to. I don't know. I guess it's been a long day." Emma wanted to tell him it was okay, that he didn't need to apologize for being human, but her throat felt tight. She simply nodded, trying to understand why the moment had touched her so deeply. Maybe because she knew that feeling too well, the feeling of carrying emotions quietly until they unexpectedly spilled over. She finally managed to speak. "Ryan, You don't have to apologize. Everyone needs comfort sometimes. He nodded again, taking a slow breath. Thank you. Really? The kitchen fell quiet. Not heavy, not uncomfortable, just quietly honest. Then Ryan excused himself, saying he was going to get some air outside. When he stepped out the back door, Emma remained still, staring at the teacup in her hand, realizing her heart was beating faster than usual. She wasn't confused by attraction. She wasn't imagining something romantic. She knew exactly what the moment meant. It's two people under the same roof experiencing different kinds of loneliness, and accidentally finding a small piece of comfort in each other's presence. But even so, it had shaken something inside her. Emma walked to the living room and sat down, letting the silence of the house settle around her. She wondered why a simple hug had stirred emotions she thought she had buried years ago. She wondered why Ryan's trembling words echoed so loudly in her mind. She wondered why she suddenly felt seen, even if only for a brief moment. When Mark finally came home much later, tired and distracted, Emma looked at him and realized something she hadn't realized before. She didn't remember the last time he hugged her with that kind of sincerity. She didn't remember the last time he looked at her with that kind of emotional honesty. That awareness felt strange and a little painful. That night, as she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Emma replayed Ryan's words over and over. I wish someone hugged me like this before. She didn't know what had caused him to say it. She didn't know what he was carrying inside. She only knew one thing for sure. That hug had changed something, not between them, but inside her. A door she thought was permanently closed had quietly opened, and she had no idea what that would mean for the days ahead. After the night of the unexpected hug, the house didn't feel the same to Emma. Nothing dramatic happened. No lines were crossed. No strange conversations took place. But the atmosphere held a new kind of awareness, soft, unspoken, impossible. To ignore it wasn't romantic or inappropriate. It simply felt like two people had seen a small piece of each other's hidden struggles. The next morning came quickly. Emma woke before sunrise, as she always did, and went downstairs to start breakfast. She tried to move through her routine with the same calm rhythm, but her thoughts kept drifting toward the memory of the night before, the heaviness in Ryan's eyes, the honesty in his words, the way that short hug had revealed how lonely he truly was. As she stood at the stove, she heard footsteps behind her. Ryan walked in quietly, his hair messy, his expression tired but gentler than usual. He avoided her eyes at first, maybe embarrassed about last night. Emma didn't want him to feel awkward, so she spoke before the silence grew heavy. Good morning, Ryan. Did you sleep okay? He nodded, maybe too quickly. Yeah, thanks for making breakfast. Simple words, but his voice carried a mix of respect and gratitude. Emma appreciated that he was trying to keep things normal. She also sensed he was the kind of person who carried too much inside and rarely let it out. They ate in the kitchen while the morning light filled the room. It should have felt ordinary, but something about the quiet felt almost meaningful, like to people learning how to exist around each other without getting overwhelmed by emotions neither of them asked for. When Mark came downstairs later, he was in a rush as usual. He grabbed his coffee, checked his watch, barely looked at Emma, and gave Ryan a quick nod. No conversation, no smile, no effort. Emma didn't expect anything different. This had become the pattern of their marriage. But she noticed something she had never really seen before: how the energy in the room changed when Mark was there compared to when he wasn't. Single quotes. With Mark, the house felt tight and silent. With Ryan, it felt lighter, warmer, more alive. Emma didn't know if that was something she should feel guilty about, but she also knew she wasn't doing anything wrong. She was simply observing what had always been true. Over the next few days, Ryan settled into a routine. He applied for jobs, helped with chores without being asked, and spent evenings reading or talking with Emma in the kitchen while she cooked. Their conversations were harmless but meaningful. Dreams, music, cities they wanted to visit someday. Nothing romantic, but deeply human. He asked questions Mark never thought to ask. What kind of art do you like painting the most? How did you meet Dad? Do you ever feel like you deserve more than what life gives you? Emma answered as honestly as she could without revealing her hidden hurt. She didn't complain about Mark. She didn't talk about being lonely. But Ryan had a quiet intuition that made him see things she didn't say out loud. One evening, while they were putting dishes away, he paused and said softly, "You make this place feel like home." Emma looked at him in surprise. "Isn't it your home?" He shook his head gently. "Home isn't a place. It's a feeling. And I guess I haven't felt that in a long time." The words struck her again. She wasn't used to someone expressing gentle honesty with her. She wasn't used to anyone noticing the warmth she tried to create. For years she had been keeping the household together, but no one ever told her she mattered. It's not the way Ryan just had. She didn't respond immediately. She didn't know how. Instead, she simply smiled. But something heavy pulled at her heart, something she didn't want to explore too deeply that night. After Mark came home late again with vague excuses about work stuff, Emma went upstairs early. She told herself she wasn't upset. But she knew she was tired of feeling unseen, tired of pretending everything was fine. But nothing prepared her for what happened next. A few nights later, she went to the bedroom to put away laundry. She heard a faint buzz from Mark's phone on the bed. She didn't intend to check it. She wasn't the kind of person who invaded privacy. But the message popped up on the locked screen, bright, bold, impossible to ignore. "I miss you. Same time tomorrow." Sent by a woman she didn't know. Emma froze. The air left her lungs. Her hands started to shake, and her knees felt weak. The truth she had pushed away for years suddenly appeared in one cold line of text. She didn't open the phone. She didn't reply. Didn't even breathe for several seconds. She simply stood there, staring at the screen until her eyes blurred with tears. She lowered the phone slowly, her heart breaking without making a sound. She didn't scream. She didn't confront Mark. She didn't collapse. Just walked out of the room, holding onto the wall for balance. As she reached the hallway, she tried to wipe her tears quickly. She didn't want anyone to see her like this, especially Ryan. But fate had other plans, standing at the end of the hallway. Just a few steps away was Ryan. He had been coming upstairs to ask if she needed help taking out the trash, but the moment he saw her face, he forgot everything he planned to say. His expression shifted, instantly concern. Shock, worry, all mixed together. "Emma," he said softly, taking a step toward her. "Are you okay?" Her lips parted, but no words came out. She tried to hide her face, but he gently stopped her with the calmness of someone who cared deeply. "What happened?" he asked. His voice wasn't forceful. It wasn't panicked. It was steady, warm, and patient, the kind of tone that made her heart break even more. Emma didn't know how to answer. Couldn't tell him the truth. Couldn't stand there and admit that her marriage was falling apart. She couldn't admit that she felt unwanted, unloved, forgotten. But her eyes, still wet with tears, already said everything she couldn't. Ryan understood. He didn't push for details. He didn't ask questions. He simply stepped closer, not touching her, not crossing any boundaries, and whispered gently, "You're not alone, whatever it is. You don't have to handle it by yourself." His words wrapped around her like a warm blanket in a cold room. And in that moment, in the quiet hallway of a house filled with silent hurt, Emma realized something painful. The only person who saw her pain was the one who wasn't supposed to. Emma didn't remember how she reached the living room. Her legs carried her there on their own, guided by shock more than thought. She sat on the edge of the couch, her hands cold, her breath shaky, her mind spinning around the message she saw on Mark's phone. She had always sensed something was wrong in her marriage. But seeing the truth in simple words felt like someone had pulled the floor out from under her. She didn't cry loudly. She didn't fall apart dramatically. She simply sat there, holding herself still, trying to understand where her life had shifted without her noticing. A moment later, she heard slow footsteps. Ryan entered the room carefully, almost afraid of startling her. He didn't sit right beside her. He left space, enough to show respect, but close enough to show he cared. Emma kept her eyes on the floor, not wanting him to see the hurt written across her face. Ryan spoke first, his voice low and steady. "Emma, I know something happened. You don't have to tell me everything, just let me be here with you." Words broke the fragile wall she was trying to hold up. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in years, tears fell freely, not out of weakness, but out of exhaustion. Ryan waited quietly, giving her time to breathe. When she finally managed to speak, her voice barely held together. "I saw something I wasn't supposed to see." He nodded slowly, understanding more from her tone than her words. "Is it about Mark?" Her silence was enough of an answer. Ryan inhaled deeply, his expression tightening with sympathy. "I'm so sorry, you don't deserve that." Emma shook, her head wiping tears with trembling fingers. "I don't even know why it hurts this much. Think I've been losing him for a long time. But seeing proof felt like everything inside me cracked." Ryan leaned forward slightly. "Because you tried. You gave your heart, even when the relationship grew cold." Emma released a long, unsteady breath. "I don't want to fall apart. I don't want to be dramatic. Feel invisible. And I don't know how long I've felt this way." Ryan's expression softened, and he said something she never expected. "Emma, you're not invisible. Not to me. Not ever." The words hit her deeper than she wished they would. She looked at him, surprised by the sincerity in his eyes. There was no hidden meaning, no romantic angle, no blurred line. It was simply truth from someone who saw her pain more clearly than her own husband ever had. Ryan shifted slightly, resting his hands together to calm his emotions. "I've watched you these past weeks. You take care of everyone. You hold this home together. You keep giving, even when nobody gives back." Emma didn't know what to say. She had never heard anyone describe her value with such clarity. She felt a tear slide down her cheek again, but this time it wasn't from her. It was from someone finally noticing the pieces of her she had long forgotten. She leaned her head gently on his shoulder, not out of attraction, but out of exhaustion and trust. He didn't move away. He didn't interpret it the wrong way, simply let her lean, offering steady support like a quiet anchor. For a while they sat without speaking. The room felt peaceful despite the storm inside her. Emma could hear his calm breathing, feel the warmth of his presence. And it comforted her in a way she didn't expect. After a minute, Ryan whispered, "I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. You don't have to say a word." Emma opened, her eyes staring ahead at nothing. "I feel foolish. I stayed with Mark because I thought things would get better. I thought the distance was just work stress. But maybe he stopped loving me a long time ago." Ryan turned slightly to face her. "No one is foolish for hoping. Wanting your marriage to work doesn't make you weak. It makes you loyal." Emma's lips trembled. "Then why do I feel like I wasn't enough?" Ryan shook his head with emotion he tried to hide. "No, don't ever think that. Choices have nothing to do with your worth." He paused, swallowing hard, as if holding back his own feelings. If anything, he never realized what he had. Emma's heart tightened at those words. She lifted her head from his shoulder, looking into the quiet determination in his eyes. A long silence followed. Then Ryan spoke again, voice softer, almost trembling. "I care about you more than you know, but I will never cross a line. You deserve honesty, not confusion." Emma felt something warm spread through her chest, gratitude, comfort, not romantic excitement, not forbidden emotion, just deep human connection she desperately needed. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not letting me sit in this alone." Ryan gave a gentle nod. "You've helped me too, more than you realize." Emma studied his face. She had noticed small things about him over the past few weeks, how he stayed quiet when he felt overwhelmed, how he carried silent pressure from trying to build a future, how he sometimes sat alone in the evenings staring at nothing. She realized he had his own struggles, his own loneliness, his own unspoken pain. "Ryan," she said quietly, "you're carrying things too. I can see it." He looked away for a second, trying to hide it. "Maybe. But tonight isn't about me." Emma offered a sad smile. "Maybe it's about both of us." The air between them was filled with truth, gentle, responsible, careful. Truth, not desire, not crossing boundaries. Just two hearts, both wounded in different ways. Finding shelter in honesty, Ryan finally stood up, giving her a moment to breathe. "I'm going to make you some tea. Something warm might help." Emma watched him walk toward the kitchen, feeling an unfamiliar calm settle over her. She had felt like she was drowning minutes earlier, but now she could breathe again. When he returned with the warm cup, she accepted it with a small smile. He sat beside her again, not too close, not too far, just in the right place. For the first time in years, she didn't feel alone in her own house. They didn't solve everything that night. Mark didn't come home with explanations. Nothing dramatic happened, but something important shifted. Emma realized she had a choice. She didn't have to live unseen. She didn't have to accept pain quietly. She didn't have to carry her heartbreak in silence. And Ryan, gentle, respectful, steady Ryan, had given her the strength to face the truth with dignity. In that quiet living room, one soft confession at a time, Emma's life slowly began to change. The next morning arrived with no softness, no calm, no gentle transition from night to day. Emma woke with a strange heaviness in her chest, the memory of Mark's message still sharp in her mind. She lay in bed for several minutes, staring at the ceiling, realizing she couldn't pretend anymore. She couldn't hide behind excuses or routines or the hope that things might fix themselves. Something inside her had snapped, not angrily, but firmly. She got out of bed, showered, dressed, and walked downstairs with a quiet resolve. She didn't find Ryan in the kitchen, but she saw a note he had left on the counter. "Made coffee for you. Thought you might need it today." Simple words, but the gesture brought a small, grounding comfort. She took a deep breath, made herself a cup, and waited. Mark came down the stairs 20 minutes later, adjusting his tie, checking his phone, giving her barely more than a glance. It was the same morning routine he had followed for years, but today, something inside Emma refused to accept the silence. She stood up, blocking his path. "Mark, we need to talk." He looked at her with mild annoyance. "I'm running late. Can it wait?" "No," she said, and her voice didn't shake. "It can't." He exhaled sharply, adjusting his tie again. "Fine. What's this about?" Emma met his eyes steadily, as if pulling strength from somewhere she didn't know existed. "Last night I saw a message on your phone." His face stiffened, but he didn't deny it. Didn't even look surprised. Simply shifted his weight, eyes drifting away. Emma continued, "Is there someone else?" A long, uncomfortable silence filled the kitchen. Then Mark answered, voice flat. "Things happen, Emma. Life isn't perfect." Her heart tightened, not from shock, but from the painful clarity that he truly didn't care enough to fight for. Their marriage, he wasn't sorry. He wasn't conflicted. He was simply done. And his indifference hurt more than any betrayal. Emma straightened her shoulders. "I won't live like this anymore." Mark raised an eyebrow, almost dismissively. "Is that what you want?" She felt her voice grow stronger. "No, it's what I need." Mark shrugged, grabbed his coat, and walked out the door without another word. The sound of the door closing behind him didn't break her. She stood in the quiet kitchen, numbed by the realization that her marriage had ended long before this conversation. Today simply made it official. When she turned around, she found Ryan standing in the doorway. He must have heard everything. His face held sadness, Not for himself, but for her. "Are you okay?" he asked carefully. Emma nodded slowly, holding herself together. "I will be." He walked closer, not to comfort her physically, but to show that she wasn't facing this moment alone. "You're stronger than you think," he said softly. "You handled that with dignity." His words didn't heal her instantly, but they helped her breathe. Over the next few days, everything changed. Emma filed for separation, not out of anger, but out of acceptance. She didn't accuse Mark. She didn't make scenes. Simply chose peace over a broken relationship. Ryan offered help whenever she needed it, packing, organizing, making calls, but he never overstepped. He remained respectful and careful, aware of the emotional weight she was carrying. When she moved into a small apartment downtown, it felt strange at first, quiet, different, but the space belonged to her. And for the first time in years, she felt a small spark of independence. Ryan visited often, helping with furniture, bringing groceries, checking on her well-being. One afternoon, he arrived with takeout and sat with her on the living room floor, surrounded by half-built shelves. Emma laughed for the first time in weeks, realizing how much lighter life felt without the constant strain of trying to fix something that wasn't hers to fix anymore. "Thank you," she said, looking at him with genuine gratitude. "You've been the only steady thing in all this." He shook his head. "You're the steady one. I'm just trying to make sure you don't forget it." Emma felt warmth in her chest, not romantic attraction, but deep appreciation. She had learned the difference between someone who stayed because they had to, and someone who chose to be there. A few months passed, and Emma settled into her new routine. She joined an art class again, reconnected with old friends, and rediscovered parts of herself she had buried over the years. Her smile came back slowly, but it came back honestly. One cool spring evening, she met Ryan at a small cafe near her apartment. He had just started a new job, and they were celebrating. They sat across from each other, sipping warm drinks, sharing simple stories. Then Ryan spoke with a hesitation she had seen only once before. "There's something I want to tell you, but I waited until you were ready." She listened quietly, curious but calm. "That first night," he said, "when I hugged you, I wasn't just sad. I realized something. I realized how much kindness can change a person." He paused. "You changed me." Emma felt her eyes soften. "Ryan, he raised his hand gently. "I'm not confessing anything romantic. Respect you too much. I just want you to know that you helped me feel safe in a time when I was struggling, and I'll always be grateful." Her heart warmed at the honesty, and he added with a small smile, "I'm really glad you found the strength to choose a better life." Emma looked down at her cup, then back up at him. It wasn't just strength, it was support. "Yours." Ryan smiled, a quiet, meaningful smile. "Then maybe we helped each other." They sat together for a long moment, not needing more words. There was no tension, no blurred lines, no confusion. Just two people who had grown through pain and found something pure between them: understanding, respect, connection, as they walked out of the cafe into the cool evening air. Emma felt something she hadn't felt in years: hope. Not because of Ryan, not because of the end of her marriage, but because she had finally chosen herself. And she knew deep down that whatever came next, new beginnings, new relationships, new chances, she would face it with strength she never knew she had.